This life has been a dream of mine forever, but can we actually do it? It's harder than it looks. We have doubted ourselves, and now we invite you to come along and see what it's really like. When we first left our home to travel across multiple continents, we assumed the hardest part was going to be logistics. It wasn't. The hardest part was school. At first, we tried a public school that is online, so they were able to log in as we were moving from city to city. That failed spectacularly, and we questioned the whole experiment. We didn't know if it was something we were going to be able to do. But now we've found a rhythm. We found something that's actually working. This is how we have schooled our children over multiple continents. Hey friends, welcome back to the Influencers Toolkit in Real Life, living the chapters as we write them. I told you the last time that this episode was going to be about us settling into our daily routine. I wanted to talk to you about how we are researching, writing, and schooling abroad. The fact of the matter is that it didn't start very easily, and it didn't start here in Tuscany. It started in Morocco. When we first arrived in Morocco, we didn't worry too much about formal classes. In Marrakech, the kids watched traditional performance artists in the ancient plaza, storytelling, rhythm, call and response culture that's been alive for centuries. In the Sahara Desert, they learned about desert ecosystems, nomadic life, and what it feels like to sleep under a sky untouched by city lights. In Fez, walking through one of the oldest medinas in the world, they saw how cities were designed before cars. Narrow alleys, artisan guilds, trade routes, architecture layered across centuries. I remember thinking, this counts. This is real education. We were wrong. Immersion is powerful, but without structure, it all falls apart. We had enrolled the kids in online school before we left the States. On paper, it sounded perfect, but we were moving every few days. There'd be a new city, a new Riyadh, new Wi-Fi. The schedule for this online program, it was a public school, and it wasn't meant for this. It just wasn't flexible enough for our lifestyle. It ended up kind of being a stressful mess. Suddenly, we were trying to log on from different Airbnbs with less than stellar Wi-Fi. It stressed everyone out. And honestly, for a minute, we wondered if this whole lifestyle was even possible. Then we arrived in Sondrio, Italy, which is this gorgeous little town in the Italian Alps. We stayed with our former exchange students' family. And finally, things calmed down for us. For once, we weren't packing every few days. We had a kitchen table. We had stable Wi-Fi. We were able to get into the groove of things. The kids were able to do their work while I wrote. And then in the evenings, we could explore the local area. After the Alps, we went on to Germany to visit two of our other exchange students. First stop was Frankfurt. We got to visit our Romy and her mother, Ruthe, who is a photographer and had this amazing exhibit at the Jewish Museum of Frankfurt called What a Family. It documented 500 years of her family's life in Frankfurt, including, sadly, her grandfather and her aunt and uncles who were victims of the Holocaust. The exhibit was beautifully done. It was thoughtful, it was personal, it was deeply moving. And Ruthe was incredibly gracious. She even walked us through it herself, but that day was hard. The kids were bored, they were restless, they were disinterested, and we were standing there listening to this profound history, feeling the weight of generational loss, and also feeling the tension of our kids next to us. It was uncomfortable. It was probably the hardest day of the trip. I think as parents, we sometimes assume that what is meaningful to us is also going to be meaningful to our kids. And it wasn't that day. They just weren't developmentally ready for it. And honestly, that realization was humbling. We wanted them to absorb the gravity of 500 years of family history, But what they felt was that they were standing in a museum learning about something that happened a long time ago to people they didn't know. And the gap between our expectations and reality, it was hard. World schooling isn't always magical. But that day taught us something important. Not every powerful experience is immediately accessible to a child, and sometimes that lesson is for the parent. From there, we headed south to visit with Maxima, another one of our exchange students, and her lovely mother. This entire little town is built in a meteor crater. Suddenly, geology wasn't abstract, it was under our feet. And when we visited the Steiff Museum and learned about the history of stuffed animals, yes, teddy bears have a history, that day reminded us that learning isn't one size fits all. We were still moving every few days, so sometimes school would happen in the car, sometimes it would happen in cafes, often it would happen at someone else's house. And I've got to say, our kids, they impressed us. They adapted, they powered through, they showed their resilience. And then we landed in our little village in Tuscany. It's remote, it has one restaurant and a butcher. Well, that and an amazing view of a castle. For the first time in weeks, we stopped moving. Routine became easier. The kids got increasingly more focused in the morning, so they were able to kind of power through their work so that we would have our afternoons free. And I've been able to dive deeper into my writing, which has been really great. As a reminder, this trip is not just us being tourists. It's actually research for my textbook on digital content creation. Tuscany has given me the space and time and pace to think and research. Also, it's given us some really cool things to go see. We went to a carnival parade. It had the most amazing floats. Not all of them were flattering to Americans.
They really are making fun of us.
But I guess that's its own sort of lesson too. We spent Fat Tuesday in Piazza Dante and Grasetta. The kids had a blast throwing confetti at each other, at us, at other kids that they didn't know and couldn't speak the same language, but it wasn't really a problem. It was a beautiful square. It actually reminded me of a miniature Florence. We even discovered a sundial painted onto the side of the Duomo there. Timekeeping, architecture, civic spaces, history layered into stone. And again, learning just happened. I think what this session has taught us is that education doesn't always have to look one way. Sometimes it's the Sahara. Sometimes it's 500 years of family history. Sometimes it's structured online lessons at a dining table. And sometimes it's throwing confetti in a piazza. We're not perfect at this. We are still very much figuring it out, but we found a rhythm. And right now, it's working. If you're curious about world schooling, traveling with kids, or building a life that doesn't fit neatly into a box, subscribe and follow along with us. We're just getting started. We'll see you next chapter.